know it's summery warm. Sun's free. Gather together to greet the storm. Tomorrow belongs to me. Linden is leafy and green. Orion gives its gold to the sea. Somewhere a glory awaits unseen. Tomorrow belongs to me. Cradle is closing his eyes. Blossom embraces a bee. Whisper, arise, arise, tomorrow belongs to me. Fatherland, show us the sign. Children have waited to see. Morning will come and the world is mine. Tomorrow belongs, tomorrow belongs, tomorrow belongs to me. Fatherland, fatherland, show us the sign. Children have waited to see. Morning will come and the world is mine. Tomorrow belongs, tomorrow belongs, tomorrow belongs to me. Tomorrow belongs, tomorrow belongs, tomorrow belongs to me. Fatherland, what's the sign? Children have waited to see. Morning will come, the world is mine. Tomorrow belongs, tomorrow belongs, tomorrow belongs to me. Tomorrow belongs to me. Sorry about the bad singing. I do want to talk about anti-Semitism. I've said before that I think it's a character defect, a mental health issue, or a learning disability. Can it be all three? I don't know. I'm not saying that people who feel that are bad. I know lots of perfectly nice people who genuinely hold these beliefs. And the thing is, there's no point going on at them, because if you try to change their mind in a really bossy way, they're going to hate you for it. And so that would be the wrong thing. And there are certain things that you have to leave alone, really. And it's hard to know the right call most of the time. I often get things wrong, I have to admit. And here's Tiffany.
Hello.
Hi. Hi. It's been quite busy today here anyway. Just so many things to say. And
Yeah. Well, I received an interesting email, and it's funny you bring up this topic, because at the bottom of the email, it was pointed out that my last name is Moser. And it was also pointed out that there's about a 50-50 possibility that that is a Jewish surname, which it's not. I'm pretty much half German, but I thought that was interesting. thing to point out. I can't think of one time I've ever pointed out somebody's ethnicity in a conversation to garner my point some more validity. I don't I
It's
don't
sort of
get
like,
it.
oh, I never liked you anyway, and I think you're a liar because you're Chinese, and therefore, when it's like, no, I don't know.
That's it.
Uh,
That's it. Yeah.
yes, yes, I mean, they make a right point, what is it? Oh, you come from a certain culture, and therefore you're going to be more dishonest than us living here in the West. And I thought, no, well, you can't tell anyway, because it's like every individual is different. I mean, maybe you can trust one person with your secrets and the other person with your money, and you really never know how far you can trust people anyway.
I don't think you can trust many very much anymore. It's a weird world we're in. But I have to say, I've never been exposed to this type of thinking before. Probably the last couple years on YouTube. Maybe not even that long. Maybe it's only been about the last 18 months or so, year and a half. I've never run into this before. I've never seen just this. I've just never known people who have this kind of thinking with the such a focus on ethnicity. It's really kind of bizarre to me. I mean, I've had in the past, when I was much younger, I had a friend who, we were in our early 20s though. She dated this guy. She wound up marrying him, actually, who thought he was a white nationalist, but we were like 21, 22. They listened to some German punk, wore some really cheesy shirts, and they grew out of it by the time they were 24, and wound up being nice, decent men. That's my exposure to this, which is, that's 20 some odd years ago. So yeah, it's kind of bizarre to me.
It's getting worse. And I think it's sort of symptomatic of people just getting scared and angry. And I was reading about this thing called magical thinking yesterday. And it's sort of, this idea that, if you only had the silver bullet, you could kill the werewolf,
Right,
and
right.
it's sort of like, if only we could just get rid of this, go on this quest to find the treasure, do this sort of thing that you think would solve all the problems. And I think the sort of focus on Jews or whatever it could be, it might be, is this. It's like, if all those people just went away, our
Yeah.
lives would be perfect, that the government would be good, and, that it's that kind of thinking, really. And they're not going to
Yeah.
give it up because they've held it for so long.
Well, it's bizarre to me because the argument seems to be a little bit fundamentally flawed to begin with, because it seems to me that the premise isn't factually based. So, for instance, everybody wants to talk about the Rothschilds and the money hold that they have and the power they have, but I believe that they stole that identity from another family. I don't even know, from what I've been reading, if they actually are of that are Jewish. And then you have
some of
you
them
know
convert to Anglicanism. I mean, there is a Lord Rothschild in the UK, and he's
right.
actually an Anglican.
Yeah. Well, and then you have the whole, and I keep bringing this up, but you have the whole excommunication of the Sabbatean Jewish sect back in the 1600s, and those people were dispersed amongst Europe, and they married, but they secretly still practiced this type of. I don't even know what you would call it. It's not Jewish, but it's the whole rule by chaos, commit sin to control the masses. Basically, it was everything against the Talmud, and they took some of these beliefs in secret into other religions. Christianity, they're supposedly founded Satanism. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. So ultimately, the killing of the Jews, I feel like people are probably hating on the wrong Jews. I don't know. This is a topic I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not very versed on, but I do see a misguided blame that goes on that I don't understand, and I can't find any type of validity. Okay, so the entertainment culture, right? The entertainment, the movies,
I
everything.
yeah. I mean, I
I
think
don't get it.
even without Jews, people who are suffering below will just assume that everybody who's doing better than them has cheated to be in a position above them, you know?
That's a
Um, I mean, there were no Jews in China during the Communist Revolution, but you know, the landlords suffered, the academics suffered, anyone who was in any position of authority would suffer, because the peasants were feeling a bit mean about, you know, being misgoverned for so long.
right,
And
right.
and and I think, you know, Jews are kind of just a metaphor really for anyone that we don't like that we can kind of group into, you know. And I think it's more firmly rooted in the West because, you know, because of Christianity,
Yeah.
and and then the thing is that the more you suppress it, the more it comes out. You say you can't deny the Holocaust, you can't be mean to Jews, and it's like they want to do it even more, right?
Right, right. Well, the Holocaust, I mean, some of the thing, I understand why they question aspects of it. Would never deny it. I understand they question the amount of death. Okay, that's fine. It's a
Well, you
logical
should be
argument.
able to. I mean, you should be
Yes, it's a
able to
logical
answer.
argument. Right.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can't, that makes it even more suspect. So I understand why there's a lingering distrust in the, you know, what we're presented as being the facts about that, for the mere fact alone that it's illegal to even to talk about it. That's not right. um but you know, I think the I had another point I wanted to bring up and I just lost it. I think that the problem lies within the fact that we need something. People need somebody to blame for these things. So for instance, you know, you don't have in America, okay, the highest earning income is from Asian American households. They are the highest income earners collectively in this country. They're a minority, right? And you know, you don't see, but there nobody focuses on that. You see what I'm saying? There's no question as to why. We know culturally they study hard, they work hard, and their focus is different than you know, Christian Americans or everything. Oh, here's my point I was going to bring up, Claire. Now I remember. Judaism is a religion. The people who live in Israel are Israelites. Being a Jew isn't it? I mean, I don't believe that's an ethnicity, is it? It's a
It
religion.
is. It's both an ethnicity and a religion in that you
Oh,
can
okay.
you get your Jewishness from your mother. You know, if your mother is a Jewess, then you are a Jew. But you might not. You know, you could think you were Gentile all the time and realize that, you know, your mother was hiding all the time that she was Jewish and to marry your father. I mean, Christopher and Peter Hitchens fall into that category.
Oh,
So,
okay. Well, you know what's interesting to me is people seem to miss the mark when it comes to this, especially when it comes to the Saudis. You know, there's a tie in there, and it's I feel like they're very confused about it. I don't know, but I'm very confused about it because again, I don't know very much about this topic. I've just
why do
never.
you mention the Saudis?
Well, because the Saudis aren't Muslim. Most of them, they're what's it called? Their religion starts with a D. Um, it was an offshoot of Judaism, I believe. Hold on, I'll find it in a second here. And a lot of the Jewish lineage, if you backtrack it, it actually traces back to Saudi Arabia, and to that area of the world. And so there's this weird disconnect there that I feel people miss, and that possibly, you know, I focus on the Saudis a lot because there's a lot of gameplay, I think, that comes out of that country as far as funding wars and funding other countries to kind of keep it within conflict within one another, um, especially in the Middle East, to basically keep it out of the Saudis' back door, to keep it, you know, away from them. I feel like they do more of what the Jewish people are accused of, right? I feel like they are more of the kind of man behind the curtain. Um,
Oh,
with
I don't know. I mean, I wasn't familiar with that line, that narrative.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that go on politically with them, and them dumping money into different universities and dumping money into different countries' armies and conflict. It's way too big of a rabbit hole to get into, but but it's never mentioned, and it's kind of odd to me that they, like with 9/11, for instance, everybody wants to talk about these dancing Israelis. Well, I mean, that doesn't prove anything.
No,
You know
it
what I mean?
doesn't.
No.
But it's all like dancing Israelis. You like it, then you're one of us. We don't want to even ask questions about why you agree, and you know, people just want to be in that group that believes the
Yes,
dancing Israelis did it, and then you're their friend until you disagree with something about
they
something with
say.
them. And
Yes,
kick you
yes. Then
out.
you work for the ADL.
Yeah. But
I
but
wonder.
what's interesting about
Mhm.
Daniel is that he seems to be denying that he's an anti-Semite. I know somebody else who does it as well. It's like, but why are you even denying it? You don't like them. Why are you denying it? But he seems to be sort of denying it, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah, completely. I mean, yeah, he's in definite denial of his supremacy, I suppose you could say. Um,
Yeah,
that email,
because he would say things like that. They do things that are against our interests, and in my DNA nation, I won't be including them. Not going to list them as part of your DNA nation. He does say that, and in fact, before I thought he was saying well, they should go back to where they came from. I'm sure okay, I thought he said that, and of course, because he put things in such a convoluted way, he's gonna walk away from that now and said, I never said I was going to expel them. I was just gonna not count them in my DNA nations. So, so that's his line, and it's like, well, you don't even like them, but you like National Socialism, but without the anti-Semitism. But oh, hey, you don't like them either, but you don't want
no,
to expel them. Okay, I get it. You don't want to expel them, but you don't want to count them as part of your nation. You know,
he,
so mhm.
he's managed to have a standpoint that absolutely nobody can agree with, hasn't he?
Yeah,
He's
but
pigeonholed him into a corner that he's not going to get. Nobody's going to. Nobody's going to agree with him. He's a trip. He is definitely a trip. I don't appreciate the way though he cuts you off and berates you. I thought that was very rude, and the
he
fact
did it
that
to you
he.
too. He got
Yeah,
shouty
he
at
did.
you.
He did. I mean, and like you were saying before, it doesn't. There's no point in saying continue on with the conversation if the person on the other end doesn't understand what the hell you're talking about. And I didn't have a clue what he's talking about. I'm very new to these topics, and I need a lot of hand holding. I don't, and it's hard to listen to somebody who's not speaking a language that you can understand. I mean, because it's like what. It's just words at that point, they don't mean anything. So, uh, but yeah,
And
it's
you can't even question them. He won't even reframe them for you. He will just
no.
continue to the end of his mile-long sentence and shout at you if you only say, "Excuse me, what do you mean by that?" And but I think
Yeah.
that is the problem. Then if you say, "But you've never explained it properly, Daniel," and then he'll just blow up at you and kick you off, because that's what he does. So the thing that he cannot bear is that he has very poor communication skills. He can't listen. He can't speak properly. And if you question that, he'll get very angry with you. But and deny that's the case. So I think so many people are in that position in a way. You have anti-Semites like E. Michael Jones. I bet he denies that he's an anti-Semite. I bet he does. You know,
Well, I think they have to because it's against the law to be of that
is
mindset,
it?
right? They've made it illegal, so they have to deny it publicly. So that's kind of they kind of have a reason why they can't admit to that because it could come with um, uh, some pretty bad
Oh, I didn't know it was
consequences.
against the law because I thought you guys had the First Amendment. So you're allowed to, think what you like and say,
Freedom of expression is it's limited, and especially when it comes to racial topics. So like for instance, when within employers it's illegal to not hire somebody because of their race or their gender when it comes to and then now they've even made it so you have to have a specific percentage if you have a larger company of minorities that work for you. Otherwise, you get audited and you can get fined and or even shut down. It's illegal to yell racial slurs at somebody. It can be considered a hate crime. So they've criminalized being racist. And I hate using that word because I don't think it's appropriate, but for lack of better words, it's basically illegal to be racist in this country. Now, that includes
Which is
anti-Semitism.
war crime, which is crazy,
Hmm.
isn't it? I mean, who's anybody to tell us who we can or can't hate?
I
You
know
know,
and
if I
it's a
said
crime of perspective
you
too,
can't
right?
hate me, you want to hate me. If I said you really, really mustn't hate me, I mean, what's going to happen? You're going to really, really hate me.
Well, and that's the thing too, is when you have these crimes that are based off of somebody's perspective of what you're saying and why you're saying it, it's a problem because words mean something completely different. I could say the same sentence right now, and you would have 10 different people hear it and have 10 different interpretations of why I said it in my intent, right? So
There's so
it's,
many ways of saying your name. I could say it, in a friendly way. I could say it in a
yeah,
contemptuous way.
yeah,
Yeah, and then we'll get our tone. We'll get tone police, won't we?
yes,
You know,
especially if it's
ask that
written.
question
Well, and the
rude
problem
and
is too with written text, it's all dependent on how the person reads it to back to themselves. They might be in a bad mood that day and read something that was, docile in an aggressive manner. And there's a lot of problems in communication lately. I mean, it's like if you look at the chat here, these people can't, they're so consumed with the fact that I'm some ADL shill that it's insane. But then yesterday they were all calling me an anti-Semite. It's like I'm an anti-Semitic Nazi ADL shill. How is that possible? It's not.
yeah.
These are words to compartmentalize people into a small group so that they can have a reason to dislike them when they don't really have a valid reason. It's really
I think
simple
that
minded.
their identity is about hating you, and that's it. It doesn't really matter the reason why they hate you, but they're going to hate you whatever you
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that's it. You'll never
yeah.
win because their identity is the hatred of Tiffany.
Yes, yes, that's how they've all come together and formed this group of which is quite funny to me because I'm extremely boring, but it's hey, people need to have a common ground, and I guess if I can bridge the masses to be friendly with one another, then why not?
Yes,
It's strange, but and I think that has a lot to do with the anti-Semitism. I think these certain people who deny the Holocaust. I mean, I still don't understand what that means. Do they deny it happened? Do they deny why it happened? Do they deny how many people died? What are they denying about it? I don't.
well, it
I
depends. I mean, different people, say it in a different way. Apparently, if you say that Hitler maybe didn't mean it, and it's like, oh, that's Holocaust denial, or you say the wrong number. Um, so it could be any number of those things, and even Jews, get into trouble because there's this Orthodox rabbi who who's,
yes,
who who says you're only Jewish if your mother is Jewish. You're not Jewish if your father's Jewish. This is how we counted. And then he said in the Nuremberg laws, you were Jewish if only one of your grandparents is Jewish. Because the Nazis had a wider interpretation of Jewishness, because they wanted to catch lots of people so they could kick them out. But according to the Orthodox Jews, your mother has to be Jewish, or you're not really Jewish. So he was saying, because of that, I will divide 6 million, which is the official figure of all the Jews killed, by four, and come up with a figure of 1 million. So that was what he said, and everybody went ape because they said it was Holocaust denial.
right, right. Well, the thing that's interesting about that is when people make these assertions, right? When they with conviction claim that their opinions and about things are fact, and they start labeling other people with these words, it could create a situation that's rather dangerous. I mean, if you look at, for instance, the Christchurch shooter, right? That guy in New Zealand, he wasn't a white, he wasn't a Nazi. He was actually a socialist, something. I can't remember the other word. It's a different type of
Social Democrat?
yeah, no, he was a, hold on, I'll look it up. But it's these people who, so for instance, you have these people in here who have compartmentalized me as to being a um this ADL shield Jew who's out here taking away people's free speech. There could one day be somebody who is in my location, in my general vicinity of where I live, who feels that I have wronged them, or they're people somehow who could hunt me down and take this out on me because of what these people are saying without any type of basis. Self-hating Jew, I never shadow banned you. I can't see your comments typically either. I thought you blocked me, but I haven't blocked you or shadow banned you. I don't even know what shadow banning means. But these people have convinced themselves that I work for this organization that 3 months ago I didn't know existed. It's funny until it becomes serious, right? And there are people on the fringe that will take this to levels that are dangerous. This has been proven time and time again. And who's to say that I wouldn't be a target of this potentially because of all this rhetoric they want to spill out there about me and about other Jewish people. I'm not Jewish, but about in general Jewish people, that it's creating a scenario where people have to live in fear unnecessarily based off of this bizarre rabbit hole that they've all fallen into. So I wish people would be more considerate when they start to label people and put them in these groups and accuse them of being these people who've done these bad things. Show me some proof. Do I
Yeah,
think?
there are people who hate you. They seem to be women, or not
No, it's all
necessarily.
men. It's
It's
mostly
all men.
men. Yeah. It's all these, look at the chat. It's all these guys. Fellow Mon and Nicole, I don't know. She's just the weirdo. But the group is these men who think I am taking away people's free speech. I've never done anything of the sort. My videos and content gets flagged and copyrighted all the time. No, Cookies, I don't have any Jewish in me.
Well, like it mattered. I mean, like it, it's going to make you more or less guilty about anything. As if Jews don't lie to each other.
Well, exactly. I mean, and honestly, my personal experience with Jewish people, I worked for two different Jewish men in the trade show industry. It was horrible. They both owe me money. We fought over contracts. They, nickel and dimed me on projects to death. I mean, it was a bad experience. I'm not going to lie. I did not enjoy it. The one was, very aggressive, physically with me. Like it was really a bad scenario with both of these people, and they both just so happen to be Jewish. Now, am I judging the entire race based off of these experiences? No, but I mean, my experiences with Jewish people haven't been pleasant. However, that's just those two people, right? I'm not going to condemn a whole entire country because these two men were, cheap assholes, basically. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not, no, I'm not Jewish. I just looked at my ancestry results today because I sent them to Daniel when he accused me of being Jewish, and there's no Jewish in me. I mean, oh
I
God.
mean, you would behave in a different way because of your ancestry. I don't think, it's like you behave
No.
in a different way if you have a different kind of idea, if you believed a different kind of thing.
Well, if
But
let's say I did come back and I was from straight Israel and it came back 100% Jewish, you know what I mean? Okay, great. Who cares? Look, here's the thing. I have zero personal attachment to this argument with people, and my only concern is watching them do this to me. I'm pretty much used to it, but I'm concerned for the person this happens to next, who just so is in vicinity of a group of nationalists who are violent, who then, this type of thinking, this illogical, neurotic, unfounded labeling of people is going to wind us up in a lot of trouble down the line if it continues. And like you said, Claire, it's getting worse. And I would hate, this is like the Salem witch trials all over again. This contagious, just
Mass hysteria.
yes, yes, yep. And
And I think it's because people are just using words in the wrong way. I mean, I know it sounds simplistic to say it that way, but you know, you know, talking about anti-Semites, it's like there are people who obviously don't like Jews. Why are they objecting to being called anti-Semites? Why? You know,
I think it boils down to they must not be as convicted about their thoughts on that than as they claim to be, because if you should own it, right? You should be proud. I
yeah, it's
figured
just like,
out.
yeah, I'm a proud anti-Semite, and you know, why shouldn't I hate them? And challenge people, you know, if
Hmm.
that's gonna, you know, if you're not ashamed. But I always think actually being an anti-Semite is actually neutral because it doesn't say you're a Judeophobe, you know, in the way that you know if you hate Muslims, you're going to be called an Islamophobe, and the phobe bit is that you know your hatred and fear of Muslims is irrational. But you know, at
Hmm.
least you know, if you're accused of being anti-Semitic, it is just like you just happen to hate Jews, you know, in a way that you maybe you don't like a certain flavor of ice cream. It's okay, um, you know, because that was kind of how what the word implies. It's not saying that you're crazy because you hate Jews. It's just saying you don't, you know, you're one of those people who don't like them. Well, being accused of being an Islamophobe is you know kind of saying that you are irrational and therefore anything you say will you know be considered irrational. So the other side always wins the argument, maybe.
Well, if anytime you have a phobia of something, I think it's, you're automatically, accusing a person of being irrational or uncontrollable or, basically neurotic. So I think that's where the conversation kind of goes south when you have, you start throwing around those allegations that people have phobias of things, because it's considered that's a weak point in a character. That's a character flaw, I think. But I mean,
Yeah, but you can still defend yourself. But so if I would be, you know, accused of being Islamophobic, I would say, well, you know, why is it, you know, you can question so many things that you deny that you're an Islamophobe, or you deny that it is irrational to hate and fear Muslims. You know, you can, you know, you don't have to run away and say you know you got me. You know, you can still argue from that position.
hmm
You know,
well, I
like
mean, the
why
fact of
is
the
it
matter,
irrational to you know fear whatever you know
don't
say?
understand. And
Yeah.
that's what I think it is. I mean, if you look into the history of it, and I got into an argument with somebody about this, and they kind of schooled me on the topic. But if you look into history, and I think that the phobia about Islam and Muslims is the fact that people assume, or they like to preach that they've killed so many people. It's such a violent religion. But if you look back in history, the Christians have killed way more people, way more people. If you look at the religious wars and the
Mm,
oh God, with the Spanish Inquisition or whatever it's called, and all this stuff. I mean, the Christians have killed a lot of people, right? It's
yeah.
not just Islam.
And a lot of them were their own people.
Yes,
Two
yes,
world wars, you know,
yes.
a European war of religion, American Civil War. I mean,
Hmm.
but
They've killed a lot of people. So maybe not so much in recent times, but I mean, history is history. We can't discredit the past, right? The past still counts. So, I think it's just a lot of people who don't understand what they're talking about, and like you said, they're using words wrong. It happens on YouTube all the time with labeling, the
mm,
narcissist, the gaslighting, the this, the that, it's just all kind of, again, I think it's rule by chaos type of thing that's going on. Displaced people who find a common ground amongst, irrational
let's all
beliefs.
agree to hate the Jews to make
Yeah,
things easy.
yeah, they belong, and then they belong, and then they have, this camaraderie, or you know what I'm trying to say. I can never pronounce that word, amongst one another, and then they find their target. Who's the biggest Jew of all that we can hate on YouTube. Oh, Tiffany, the half German girl. Okay, let's hate her because she's obviously a Jew. All right, yay. And they all, get their shits and giggles out of, witch hunting people virtually. And you have a group of friends from it. It's really dumb.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fun. I guess this is how it usually works. You join a group who's supposed to hate whatever, and then you accuse each other of the thing of being, the enemy within. So that's a fun and games of politics now. You know. So
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I the irony is I could post up pictures of my first communion. I could post up pictures of my confirmation, my Catholic high school I went to, my church, my parish I went to as a kid. Um, I could post up images of my now deceased uncle who was a deacon. All these things.
but they
My
want to believe. They want to believe that you're Jewish, and
uh-huh. Yeah, they
they
do.
need to believe. They need to believe that you are evil. So
Well, yeah, if
because
I'm this
then they keep their identity. You see.
Yeah, yeah, I'm giving them validity. I mean, if I'm this boogeyman under their bed, then their fears are real. That this thing, the mantra they march by, it makes it real. It becomes tangible, and it's really ironic to me because if I was the scariest villain they could come up with, they need to. I'm sure there's much worse out there, you guys. I'm just kind of goofy. I like to talk to people. That's about it. But it's really interesting. My last name, apparently, according to the book of Hebrew history or Jewish some book that's out there, means, now get a load of this. This is just my luck. It means serpent informer or rat. Somebody who, I swear, somebody did a video on this. I'm like, I looked it up and it was like, oh my God, of course, that is just my luck. Now in German, it means fruit merchant or something like that, like a street vendor of fruit. But in Hebrew or something, apparently it means an informant. So there you go. Proof of my obvious informing the Mossad.
Well, I don't
So
know why these people even think that anybody cares about them to inform on them because, technically we're all very easily defined, aren't we? You know,
that's the
you
thing that makes it so funny is their egos are so inflated. They actually think people are being paid to watch what they're saying. Trust me, guys, nobody cares. No, there is not a single soul out there who gives a one rat's ass about anything any of you are saying. I hate to inform you of this. I'm not trying to knock you down, but that's just the reality. There's no organized thought going on here that's important to anybody in any official capacity. I mean, I don't know why they think this, but you know, they've really elevated themselves. So yeah,
because they are the victims of Jews
of
for
course.
centuries now,
Yeah.
millennia.
Shadow boxing or shadow banning and gatekeeping and all these words they throw around. I don't even know, what anybody who's been shadow banned. I mean, self-hating Jew, I'm not sure. We've always gotten along. I think you might have blocked me. I would check your block list because I checked mine when I couldn't see you in Scotty's chat that one day, and you weren't on mine. So I haven't shadow banned you. I can build a bomb and blow up a city block if I want to. And Assad is watching for a reason. Well, I mean, look at the synagogue that was just, you know, held under siege. I mean,
That guy was clearly a retard.
obviously, obviously. And that's the other thing too. People don't understand mentally deranged people exist in all kinds of colors and religions, and psychopaths are, they don't pick one group or another. They're all over the place. They're all over, and it's just the problem that we're ignoring. Claire's mental health, I think, is something that's being brushed under the rug, and it's unfortunate because people are losing their minds, and it's I don't
Yeah,
see this. Yeah, it's not going
yeah.
anywhere good.
And I think, a lot of these problems are due to not being able to prioritize what we should do for the best. And
Right.
I would say, hypothetically, if you did believe in God, everything would be explained. The bad stuff, like we're suffering because we have sinned, and we know we have sinned because here are God's laws, and we've broken all of them. Or some kind of reasoning like that, right? And then you can, oh
Hmm.
well, better stop sinning, and maybe we'll stop suffering. Why didn't we try?
Yep.
It
Yep.
might work. It might work. Well, at the moment, all we have is, I have the theory that it's the Jews. Oh no, it's the Muslims. Oh, it's the Illuminati. Or whatever they want to blame, and then they'll be arguing about who is right, and maybe killing each other, and then there's more problems, and nothing gets solved.
Yep. Yep. Well, I mean, and that's, and that's the thing is there's never going to be a solution as long as we don't have a direction, and there is no direction. It's everybody's going in opposite directions off a cliff.
I
Know.
have a direction, but
You do.
nobody will
And
support
that's why I
me.
respect you, because you do have a direction, and that's why I respect you. And I there's points that you make that I completely agree with, and I think it's impressive the way you are able to maintain your focus amongst all this noise, right? With so much pushback, you still trudge through with your vision and your ideas, and I wish more people saw that as being such a strength instead of that trying to minimize that. I don't get it doesn't make sense. um my kids aren't effed up, and they're fine. They're in school. So there's that, Mama. I'm glad you're concerned though, but they're doing good. So while I talk mad shit, but Mama, have oh God, I just can't even look at the chat. This is where I get so pushy.
I know it most of the time anyway.
Oh God, they get rabid in there. But yeah, Claire, it's unfortunate that they can't funnel all this energy into something that has a solution, right? That's the other thing that I think people miss here.
It's so disgusting. I'm sorry, I'm going on about Ed Dutton again. It's like, yeah, okay, the stupid people, they can't talk, they can't, sort through their thoughts, they can't they can barely string a sentence together. But you would have thought that, people like Ed Dutton, people with bigger channels than me, they don't like my idea. I'm happy to, well, answer questions about them. But what they have done is, you know, start. Well, there is a conspiracy of silence, basically. They're just saying we must never talk about her, we must never mention secular Quranism, we must never platform her, and that's our group identity.
Well, the irony behind it is they have done to you what they claim is being done to them, which is shadow banned you. They have tried to silence you. They've tried to shadow ban you. They've tried to deplatform you in some cases, right? With that whole incident with Ralph.
Yeah.
So the irony is that the only people exercising these restrictions on people's personal rights to expression are the ones who are crying about it being done to them. And I just cannot wrap my head around the hypocrisy of it. It's so funny to me, you know? So it's unfortunate that, because I think you have a lot of good points that you make, and people, I don't see them listening. I see them say, she wants to turn everybody into Muslim. No, I don't ever hear you say you want people to convert to Islam. I hear you say you want to enforce the laws based out of the Quran in a government form in society, because you feel that society would be better governed with some more laws off of that have to do with moral choice, and less about, what's the word I'm looking for? Just restructure everything. You know what I'm
Yeah,
trying to say.
without actually requiring anybody to say they believe or don't believe. Believe if you want, don't disbelieve if you want. Say maybe if you want, as long as you obey the laws.
Hmm.
And I don't think that anything crazy, because I have a particular interpretation of it. But the Muslims are too scared to talk about it because I don't know. I mean, you can't find any decent people prepared to talk honestly about things, or they get scared and then
They're afraid of being wrong, right? They're afraid of being wrong about their opinions. And I think that's why they stay away, because God forbid somebody's wrong about something. It's like their whole world collapses if they're proven wrong about a topic. Nobody wants to learn. Nobody wants to listen. We're all heading to off the cliff, and good luck, people. No, I'm just kidding. There's still hope. There's still hope. I think that there's this.
They assume failure. That is the thing. They assume the worst will happen, and therefore they have to protect themselves. So they will never do it. They will never do the right thing because they assume failure. And I think Prince Andrew, I think, is a case in point in that you know I've said it so many times, like, well, if it can happen to him and his mom's a queen, then it can happen to anybody. But you still get all these sort of, low grade, stupid, lower class people who are just happy that somebody, suffers, for no particular
Mhm.
reason, for
Well,
something they do because it's not against the law to have sex with a 17-year-old, not in the UK anyway.
no, it's not.
But they say,
And
oh,
that's
yeah, he
that's a
probably
good
did it.
point.
Yeah,
Well,
he
I saw
probably
somebody. You saw somebody earlier say, "Well, he visited Epstein's house several times," and you're saying that he hasn't. He didn't. Well, that's an assumption. You can't charge people based off of presumed crimes that they've committed. The case at hand is the one in front of us, saying that he and this woman who's received a settlement from Epstein already in the past, who was of legal consensual age in the UK. I don't understand how that works. That is a that's not justice. It's very bizarre to me that this is going on. Now, do I think Prince Andrew is a good guy? And yeah, he's okay. He's out there having, intimate interactions with the young girls, like the 17-year-olds. Like, no, he's kind of a creep, right? But it doesn't mean he's a criminal. The law is the law. It's black and white. Here's the law. Here's what the law spells out. Here's what happened. Doesn't add up. People
they
shouldn't be
really are
applauding
trying.
that.
I know it's disgusting, because it's like you're so stupid you don't know that if they can do it to him so easily, they'll be able to do it to the rest of us. You know.
Hmm. That's the problem, and that's what they don't understand. See, with this Me Too movement took off, and all these men were losing their positions in Congress, they're losing their places in organizations and companies, off of the news media. What all these men started losing their livelihoods because of a alleged allegation of some type of sexual misconduct, ranging from swatting somebody on the tush to something more serious. It was wrong. You cannot just say words and then somebody can be convicted of being a criminal and a sexual deviant. It is wrong. There has to be due process. But the court of public opinion charged, they found all these men guilty, and they lost their jobs and their income and their families in some cases. And that should be illegal. There should not be the ability, if we can't question things like the Holocaust, if we can't say, uh, you know, the things that we want to say, right, without it being criminalized, why can women accuse men, uh, falsely in some cases, of being these sexual predators and have them lose everything without any type of legal retribution for them if it winds up being a lie? There's a what do they
Yeah.
call that? It's just wrong. There should be a statute of time. There should be,
Yes. Yes. I think you mean a limitation act, a limitation
yes,
period.
yes,
Yeah, but because I mean, how can you prove you didn't do it? 20 years ago you did this thing, this sex thing with this person. It's like, how are you going to prove you didn't do it? I mean,
that's
for,
the
for, for,
thing.
for, for a man or a woman, it's very difficult to prove you did murder that person. You didn't steal that thing, you know?
And
And that,
I'm in no means excusing sex crimes against women. I mean, being a victim of something like that is horrific. I'm not trying to minimize that, but there's a lot of people who are wrongfully accused of that. For instance, and I didn't agree with this, but Bill Cosby, I made a nasty comment about him on this video, and this woman came and replied to me, and she said, "You need to read the testimony from that court case and understand that there was not evidence to convict that man." She goes, "It was a horribly um, uh, dirty court cases with testimony that shouldn't have been heard. The DA was crooked, and she gave me a link, and I did. I went back and I read through the testimony in the court transcript, and it was bad. I was blown away. But everybody, they're so ready to. They love to have a villain. They love to have somebody they can accuse. It makes them feel good. When we have enemies, it gives us a reason to excuse our own bad behavior. If it weren't for these enemies, we would be very good people most of the time. We wouldn't have to behave this way, but we do because of our enemies, right? Because we have to combat them and we have to do things to stop them. These bad things we do are only because of them. It gives people excuses, gives them somebody to point a finger at for their own behavior and their own actions. And when we can say, look at Bill Cosby, that sexual predator, there's something that they feel good. They're they're virtuous. I'm better than Bill Cosby, but we don't really know if he was. He's been released now. I think it's sad. I mean, did he possibly rape people? Oh, yeah, it's possible. But how do you prove that 40 years ago? You can't. It's a ridiculous court case to even hear. We waste so much money on this bullshit. It blows my mind.
And it's in the Bible even that there is this verse in Deuteronomy chapter 19 verse 15 which says no man shall be convicted on the uncorroborated testimony of one witness. 2 or 3
Yes.
are required.
Yes.
It's like it's there in the but nobody ever thought of invoking it. Because if it's just one person's word against the other, then I guess the prettier, more distressed one will win. Some
Yes.
woman can cry, did it to
Yes.
me, and he ruined my
Yes.
life. And
Well,
there's an
good.
ugly old man who looks like he could.
Right. He might look like somebody that rejected them in high school for a date or made fun of them, and they could form their opinion based on the fact that he looks like somebody familiar to them that they don't like. I mean, leaving things to people's opinions is so risky. It's scary. Now, not to
Because it would be
undermine.
the case that it wouldn't come to court. If it's one person's word against another, it just wouldn't reach court because, who you're going to believe, the better actor, the better actress. So, unless there's corroborating testimony, like somebody else was there, it did happen, or some kind of evidence, recording,
Mhm.
whatever. It can't just be one person's word against another.
Well, but that's what's going on here, and that's what
And those
happens.
stupid lawyers, these lawyers that are dime a dozen,
Mhm.
who are kind of processed out of law school, they're not saying anything like that, you know. And nobody seems to know the basic principles of the law now.
No, they don't. And then you have these media lawyers like the Gloria Allrads and out here, who will take on these women. And it's I just think it's a shame. We've really lost our way when it comes to it's become people are guilty until proven innocent. It's not the other way around anymore. And it's it's interesting to me. It's like, for instance, you have somebody in the chat who's accusing me of having my son film me in a very inappropriate manner, which never happened. Now, this weirdo will go around the internet and she'll say these things, and people will convict me of this crime with no proof, with no evidence. I will be guilty just because somebody said it. This is wrong. It's wrong. But what makes it wrong, it's not the person saying it that I blame necessarily. They obviously have issues with their cognitive ability and logic and discernment, and their intent is misguided. It's the people that will just go along with these words, right? And that's what scares me, is that there's so many people out there with such confirmation bias, the fray that just eats this stuff up, because again, it
Yeah,
falls into the
they want to hurt people. They want to kill people.
yes,
They
they
want to take
do.
it out on someone.
Yes, they
Yeah.
do. Yes, they do. And it's like, why is that? Um, I, I just, it's like I said, it's this modern day witch hunt, this contagious psychosis that's going on in hysteria. And, I don't know how to solve it. It's best ignored, but, people don't realize these allegations they're hurling at other people could wind them up in a position where they are in harm's way. And nobody considers that. They don't care. They just would rather spew these words about Jews and this and that and another thing. I mean, it's hilarious to me. Are we
Yeah,
going to pull hurt people now? Well, hurt people do hurt people, so, um,
mm. And the
it's
government doesn't seem to care or know. It's not even doing what's good for them. The ruling classes of
no, they want
the
us to be
UK.
hurt. Yeah, they want
And
us to
it's
be
like
hurt and
they're doing it
vulnerable.
even on purpose. It's like it just never occurred to them that they should care about us or deal with our grievances or not seem to be fighting each other while we're watching, you know? Because they're
Yeah.
fighting each other in the UK, they're using the lockdown rules to get each other out of office. So now they're
Mhm.
saying the British Prime Minister went to all these parties and they broke the
Oh
lockdown rules,
God.
and that's what they're doing to each other.
I see that. I saw that and I was like, where is this gonna go? And the poor guy, they question him, they corner him, and he's stumbling over his answers, obviously, because maybe he didn't know. Maybe he did think it was a work function. But I mean, how many of these citizens of Britain snuck out of the house and had secret get togethers amongst one another and broke that law? I'm sure plenty did. But we
Mhm.
have to condemn, him because it happened out here in California too with Gavin Newsom. And I have to say, I was rather unhappy about it because he's such a prick. But, but that's the mentality now.
Who is Gary Newsom?
Oh yes, he's awful. He is so corrupt and his policy is so ridiculous.
He's a
It,
Democrat, is he? A senator?
yeah, he's a Democrat, but he is more like a draconian leader, man. I mean, he's horrible. Um, but it's one of these things where I don't know. I just hope that the world does that we don't, the direction we're going. And I always look at the UK and look at Australia just to kind of see where we may be heading next. And um, you
Yeah,
know,
there's no point having your constitution if nobody's going to use it.
no, they
I mean
don't.
that's a thing. I think a lot of Europeans would sort of, oh, the Americans, they have their constitutional rights, but if they're too scared to use it, then it's not going to help. Or
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. But, they all want to preach about it. I doubt many people know the Constitution. I know it very casually. I should know it better. I couldn't tell you all the constitutional amendments. I wouldn't be able to list them all right now. That's a shame. That is a shame. That I think falls back to our school system, our educational system here in America. We don't focus a lot on history and our rights. It's the first thing we should be learning as children, what our rights are as being a citizen in this country. That's so critical. They barely spend any time on it. It's mind blowing. It's really mind blowing.
but your parents would. They know a bit better, or what?
Well, I started learning my constitutional rights when I became, in situations where I needed them, where I needed to know them so I could protect myself. That's what it took for me to start knowing what my rights were. As far as it goes involving the police and entering your home
Right,
and
not to incriminate yourself. The Fifth Amendment.
the Fifth Amendment, yeah, not to incriminate, not to, let anybody in your answer your front door and just let anybody in, not to um, have to mince your words in certain situations. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we have rights to that we don't know about. The right to self-protection, the right to religion, the right to um, I mean, again, I couldn't even tell you them all, but I've had to learn more because of my own rights being violated, and that's the reason why I started learning what they were. Um, but most people don't know that. Even police officers don't know your constitutional rights. If you were to ask police, there's these auditors that do this all the time. They'll go around, they'll ask different police officers. They can list the articles of the Constitution. They can't do it. You would think the cops would know.
Hmm.
We're a mess out here, Claire. We have no heritage, no history, no respect for our own rights, and that's how they're going to get us. That is how they will get us. So,
There was something you mentioned when you're saying, people get falsely accused, um, and and then they get punished even though it wasn't proven properly.
mhm.
I just wanted to mention that in the Quran that there's actually quite you may approve of this verse. So if a man falsely accuses a woman of being unchaste or having had sex or something uh, with a man, not her husband, and it's not true, he would get 80 lashes because if true, she would get 100 lashes if she was falsely accused and convicted. But since I think it's
Well,
actually quite fair.
I
For
mean,
some,
I think if that would dissuade people from making false allegations, right? I mean, there's some people out there I'd like to have 100 lashings to. I would even do it myself. But maybe we should even make the parents of these people do it. Look at the shitty person you raised. They did this. Now you're gonna have to lash them 100 times. I mean, there has to be some sort of accountability with um, people, right? We get away with way too much, especially in California. They've decriminalized all sorts of stuff. I've mentioned it all the time, but you can break the law and get a slap on the hand and you know um, released right then and there with no consequence. Go break the law again. We're not going to do anything the second, third, or fourth time either. And in fact, not only will we not do anything, but we will, roll out the red carpet and we won't even call you a felon anymore because that's against the law too. You're a justice involved person. So dumb.
oh, yeah. I heard you say that a few
So
months ago.
dumb.
Yeah, it's like it's encouraging them. So it's like who thinks it's a good idea to do that?
I don't
I
know.
mean, the Democrats, I suppose.
I suppose so. Yes. There's our new attorney general or somebody in LA County has decriminalized so many laws that there was a man recently who was out on bail, $1,000 bail, who had a rap sheet that was, I mean, incredibly long. It spanned over 2 decades, violent crimes, all sorts of stuff. And he wound up going into a high-end furniture store and murdering a 24-year-old UCLA grad student, beautiful girl, senselessly. He didn't steal anything. There was no reason to murder her except he was a psychopath. There's
Mm.
no reason this man should have been out free on the streets. But this attorney general we have now, or whoever it is heading up these laws that they have for apprehension and bail and retaining criminals in jail, has made it his goal to release people from jail despite their crimes. It is absolutely horrible because where he thinks he's preserving the rights of these criminals, what he's actually doing is he's limiting the rights of the people who aren't in doing this, right? So you have a girl who's a law abiding, good contributing member of the community, who's heading places, who's in school, doing the right thing at work, whose rights were taken away along with her life by a man who shouldn't have had the right to even be there. The person who made those laws should be charged with her murder, in my opinion, as well. The person who came up with that law to lower bail amounts to let people out on the streets instead of locking them up because they're animals should be charged for her murder as well. That's what I think. That's what
But
I think.
why is there no pushback? I mean, aren't there any people saying, no, it's not a good idea to do this sort of thing. We won't allow it. I mean, why does nobody ever say this sort of thing?
I think because we've become such a corporation, a corporately funded country, that the pushback doesn't even matter because the corporate funding into um, our government and our even our local governments is so overwhelmingly powerful. I think people think there's nothing we can do to change anything anymore. I think they've become just disheartened by the whole process of it. We can preach, we can stand in our soapboxes with our megaphones, but when it boils down to it, the things that change the laws are the funding that comes in from these big giant corporations, the pharma industry, the
Well,
Walmart.
that's the thing. That they're so powerful, they're so wealthy, they can afford to bribe any politician in the world, and that's why
Mhm.
they should be broken up. And people need to talk about these things rather than blaming Jews. You
Yes,
know,
or term
because
limits, right?
or what?
Or term limits, and our Congress doesn't have
Yeah,
any term limits. We've had
but
people
it's
in
so
Congress
boring.
for 100 years.
Yeah, these subjects are boring, and it's not as exciting as hating Jews, so they never get talked about.
Well, it's like
But
Cookie said, it's because they're too busy talking shit on the internet, and that's really the problem. They've really created this distraction for us to all be so consumed by pointless topics that these things that are truly important, that are affecting our lives, aren't they don't matter anymore because they're overshadowed by bullshit. And it's they just need to start holding the people responsible for these tragedies like this who created these awful laws. They have to be held accountable in some
yes,
manner.
yes, but people like Ed Dutton and the people of his group, Millennial Woes, and all these people with a bigger channel than me, they're not going to talk about these things, will they? They're going to make snide remarks about, the censorship is getting worse. Ooh, lockdown, vaccines, and that's it. They are complete bores. They're unable to organise anything. They can't think of any counter argument against my proposals, and
Right.
yeah, and they're just going to blame Jews until they go into their graves,
Right.
and
Well,
that's how it's going to be.
and the problem is too, and that what people aren't understanding is that, okay, so in the upper echelon of government, yeah, it's pretty much impossible to knock the walls down there. But in your local governments, that's where you can start making a difference. If you get involved in your local government, your local elections, you can start seeding better politicians for the future. You can try and wean these people out who are obviously taking special interest type money and funding to push an agenda. That's where you can get involved and make change, right? Because don't think for a second that these wealthy players involved in all this aren't funding certain local politicians in order to move them up the ladder in the future, so they have a stronghold on what's going to go on in the lawmaking. I mean, this is what happens. There's super high focus on just smaller elections by a lot of these special interest groups to farm out these people for the future. And that's where we can get involved and we can make a difference. That's where we have the ability to actually have some change. At least out here we do. I don't know how it is in the UK, but here we can get involved in that. We I was part of a, I'm a vaccine questioner, which compartmentalizes me with a group of really crazy people. But my son had a reaction. He had an bad adverse reaction due to genetic disorder, and so I was part of a group, and we did a referendum for a bill that they put out. I mean, man, we were in parking lots handing stuff out. We were, collecting vote ballots. I mean, we were on the ground out there really doing stuff, and it didn't work, right? We wound up losing, but we did something, right? And we were out there, and it was interesting. And it was fun being involved in something like that. It was productive, um, much more productive than it is being on Twitter arguing with doctors. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
you need the face-to-face contact, so
mhm,
you feel that the other person is real rather than some fake account with a fake name.
mhm,
And a lot of these men are so frightened they dare not reveal their identity. That's why they're so nasty, because they think they can get away with everything because
mhm,
nobody knows who the hell they are. But they're just
mhm.
wasting their own time. They think maybe they've done something by posting a few nasty comments about whoever. They've done nothing, and they know it, really.
The thing that's so funny is they focus on, for instance, these people focus on me. I have a very small reach. I have a very low viewership on my channel. I don't even put out content anymore. And it seems like there's much bigger people with a much bigger audience that could have a lot of this attention. That would be a lot more productive.
Yeah, but they're too scared of losing subscribers in case they say something wrong. And the people who like the same old shit, get angry with them because it's not the same old shit. It's new shit.
It's new shit. Yeah, that's it. It's so funny to me. What a waste of time. But at the end of the day, when it boils down to it, I might just take all this hate publicity can be a good thing too. It's views are views, people, man. I worked in marketing for almost 2 decades, and I'll tell you, there's no discrimination on a set of eyes falling upon you because of interest, right? Good interest, bad interest, it's all the same when it comes
Mhm.
to trying to advance a message, right, or an idea, or
Yeah,
brand
it
yourself.
needs
So,
engagement. People are interested whether they like it or not. It's the fact that they care to say they hate you. That's actually a good sign.
well, and the thing that's so funny, what they don't realize, I could really capitalize off this if I wanted to. It takes a certain amount of time for. I used to do a lot in company branding and whatnot, and there's a certain amount of times that you have to interact with a company logo and a slogan and colors for it to be embedded in your familiar memory, right? So you have to visually see print media, you have to hear, a jingle or song or whatever, and then their slogan or their tagline. And then you have to physically interact with something, whether it be a magazine ad or something on the internet that you click on, in order for, let's say, for you, I say the word bread. The brand of bread that has done the best job of that is the brand that's going to come to your mind immediately when I say that product. So the product that they're selling, their company name overshadows what the product is. So people won't say bread out here; they'll say Wonder Bread, right? Because they've done a great job at marketing. And Wonder Bread probably had a lot of naysayers back in the day, right? A lot of people, I hate Wonder Bread. It's made by the Jews, whatever.
Mm.
It doesn't matter. The negative, the positive, it's talk. So maybe I'll take all this engagement and turn it into a platform to promote secular chronism. Who knows?
That would be funny. It's like, what's that? And I've done so
Then I
many
can.
memes already.
Somebody called me a shill for Islam in here the other day. That was the first. I was like, whoa, wait, hold on. My resume is getting so much deeper now.
Yes. Well, I think
I
that
was
would
like,
work because people think, you've got to be in your pigeon. How can you not be Muslim while you're promoting Sharia? How can you be a woman if you're against feminism? It's, you're not a woman, and I think it's this sort of not being what they expect you to be, because you manage to keep your identity and stop them from making you the thing they want you to be. That it's useful. It's useful because you have this distinctive character that people recognize. And
right. And,
uh,
and out of all the people that dislike me, it's kind of a good process of elimination for me to find out who all the morons are. And they really saved me some work when it comes to assessing people and whether I want to engage with them or not, because they're doing all the legwork, So I just got to look. Okay, so yeah, okay, there's you, and you, and just okay to check them off my list. Never going to talk to them, and then it leaves just a small select few. It's like, okay, those people might have some logic and some ability to discernment and other things. So they
yeah.
so this, I don't know, maybe I'll try and capitalize off this. You guys look out. I'll be
Well,
marketing myself on my main. I'm almost at 4,000 watch hours. Come on, guys, let's get there. I'm gonna start doing live streams.
yes, yes,
Why not,
yes,
right?
yeah. And we might as
But
well talk about things that really matter rather than all the side issues that I just don't understand crazy things like flat Earth. People are talking about this sort of thing now because what?
oh god, it's so stupid. Well, I used to talk about things I wanted to talk about, but then ironically, I started getting silenced off YouTube. I can't talk about those things anymore. My videos get removed for for medical misinformation and stuff. So I but I'm interested in politics. I'm interested in humanitarian topics. I'm interested in other.
Psychology would be a good one, I think, because only my line on lockdown is that the female preference is always being prioritized. So the female wants to be safe, and quite right too. But if everything were prioritised according to the female preference, and then it would be unfair and probably not that healthy. But it would be bad if everything were prioritised for the male preference, because what they probably want is war, war, war. So there's got to be a balance, and that's all I'm saying. I don't think it's extremist to say these things, except that
No,
nobody will debate these things with me. People like Ed Dutton, they can't talk about these
because they
things.
can't. I don't think they can. I don't think that they don't want to. I don't think they're capable. They're not able to. They may not. They're lacking the intellectual ability to debate. Debating is a difficult. It's not everybody can sit down and have an intelligent, respectful debate without it turning into these ad hom attacks and things. And I think, Claire, a lot of them are intimidated by you, right? They are intimidated by your knowledge, and because you have a good understanding of not just what you're talking about, but of the opposite sides of the Abrahamic religions. You understand Christianity, you understand Judaism, you understand Islam, and you have a vast knowledge of all of these things. And I think maybe they're intimidated by you. I've seen you hold your own in some pretty precarious situations with people accusing you of horrible things, and you just kind of march right on through it. And it's impressive. It is definitely impressive. Oh, I know everybody's, oh my God, how can you say that? People start thinking out of the box a little bit, man. I mean, not everything has to be this bashing, judgmental, negative, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
opinion
I
on
think
things.
I think you might be the crucible where they say, "How could you say this thing about not wanting to keep your severely disabled baby? That's cruel. That's inhumane."
Right. Well, there's situations where severely disabled infants don't make it to, 1 years old. And, it's a very uh, painful existence in some cases. In most, it's very tragic. It's very draining. And there's no point to it. Now, I don't think we should be throwing all disabled babies off a bridge. No, I think that's I have a disabled child. I mean, that I just can't subscribe to that. But what you are saying is what is something that already exists. That's Claire, in the UK, that already exists. There are
Death
people who have,
pathways.
yes, yes, it's a process too. I thought it was funny when the Crucible was asking you, because I just so happened to watch a documentary on this the other day, a couple of days prior to you sending me that interview you did. And so it was fresh in my mind, and I was hoping, it's like, I hope Claire knows about this. And right there, you were on it. And I was like, and he wasn't prepared to interview you, I feel. But I mean, you even schooled him in autism when he said he had an autism. He said, "What about my autistic daughter?" Well, autism isn't diagnosed until well into toddlerhood at the earliest. There's no
Yeah,
infant.
that's what I thought. You can't
Hmm.
tell a baby is autistic until at least it's 2 or 3. I would have thought,
Right. Right.
because
So
it's like babies are such odd creatures anyway. You can't really
It's
expect.
hard. Yeah, autism is hard to diagnose until you're into more cognitive development at an early child. I mean, my son wasn't diagnosed, and he was considered early until almost 2.5, maybe nearly 3. And then there's reevaluation. So, I mean, under your idea of this law, would my son have been exterminated or disposed of, whatever, put down? No, he wouldn't have fallen in that. He was a healthy newborn baby, right?
And,
But
and, and
there's,
it would have been up to the parents anyway, because they want to say, "Oh, you just want the government to go and kill all these people." Like, no, no, it's up to the parents.
yeah, yeah. Well, who would want their baby to suffer? I mean, who would want their innocent little newborn baby to suffer if they're not going to make it to a year old anyways? I mean, there's some cases where these babies are born and it's so grim, you know. There's so many situations where, and then I think it's almost cruel to keep them alive in some instances. I'm sure parents who have experienced this would strongly disagree with me. It's a horrible thing to say, but you know,
Yeah,
I
if
don't
you
know.
had to pay out of it of your own tax income,
Yeah.
this thing that will not make it past its first birthday, would you pay all that? No, they wouldn't. But if somebody else is paying, yeah, we'll use it to maybe milk sympathy out of friends and family. I know people who do that too.
Yeah. Well, out here we basically do. Out here, our insurance is such crap anyways. We are out of pocket for quite a bit. But
Mhm.
there the right to human life, okay, is right every life should have. However, when does it become a selfishness on the parents' end because of their necessity and their need to keep a very severely in and disabled child alive that's whose quality of life is going to be nothing but pain and suffering? To me, it toes the line of, I mean, when you have no quality of life, is that okay? I mean, I'm a parent. I can understand the dilemma, but I don't think the argument is being, when you say these things, I don't think people are understanding it. I think they're saying that you think that if you have a baby who's blind, you should go take them out back and throw them down the drain. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe you are saying that. If you are, I don't agree with that. But
No,
I
no,
think,
no, 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 of course not, because there are degrees of disability. I mean, it could happen that I might say I don't want it, but I could put it up for adoption. But if it's severely disabled, that it will never lead an independent life, then if I don't want it, who would? What kind of crazy person would want somebody else's severely disabled baby?
yeah.
It can't be a nice person.
Claire, you're not promoting the infant side of children. I mean, that's not an infant. That's a silly thing to even say. 18 years old or younger.
Yeah, I know. It's like they're gonna say you want to kill kids. It's like, no, no,
Right.
infants. Yeah, yeah. It's like, for how long
The pro
they,
the pro the problem with that would nobody would make it past their teenage years, because by the time these kids became teenagers, every parent would want to kill them anyways. I've had a teenager. They are not fun. They are not fun. I don't care how good they were as kids. They get to be a teenager. Oh my God, it takes everything in you not to wring their necks at times,
Mhm.
right? But
Imagine. Yes, yes. Because they think
that's
they
why.
know everything. Suddenly they think they know everything and they're better than you, and you're nothing to do with how cool they are.
No, no, and they just that's their stubbornness. It's admirable, but it's frustrating. My son was very stubborn and very uh, headstrong, and that's challenging at times. But he's turned out to be a very nice adolescent young man. He's works hard and has a nice girlfriend and everything else. So
Oh, that's great.
yeah, he turned out okay. I was worried there for a minute there, Claire. I'm not going to lie. I was like, this is it was so bad. It was so
Mhm.
bad. My younger one is heading into that age. He's 12 now, so I still have another year of sanity left, and then I'll be back into the hell of teenagerness. But I think he's going to be a lot easier than his brother. He's kind of a different soul. He's an
Mm.
old soul. So I
You
think
know
we'll.
this thing about the Jews, they have this thing called the bar mitzvah, coming of age
Yes,
ceremony, and
yes, yes.
yesterday I looked it up, and basically the boy has to realize that it's of the age where it takes full responsibility for its sins.
Isn't that amazing? What a
Yeah,
great
so it's the
concept.
age of criminal responsibility. And I thought, why don't Gentiles use it? When your kid is 13, it's like, well, if you go and commit a crime, you're going to be for it. I don't have to, take responsibility. And I think that, I think people should do that,
Claire,
Jew
that's
or
why
Gentile.
in Western culture we have children who stay in a state of adolescence until their late 30s.
Mm.
That
Yeah,
is why men don't progress out here, is because we've stopped making them accountable. We've stopped forcing them to become men. It's like they're just riding the wave now as long as they can. It's a problem. It's a massive
yes,
problem.
which is why Daniel can't take responsibility. It's like, well, I haven't been successful. I must have done something wrong. It's like somebody else. It's the Jews. They've somehow made me not be able to talk properly and not be able to control my temper. It's just it's like, up to a point you can blame your parents, but after that, maybe they're dead already. You can't be blaming your parents forever. It's like,
No.
yeah, you got to
Well, I
go.
mean, I found it amazing that he has allotted you a certain amount of speaking time overall. You've had your amount of speaking time he's given you, and now that you have surpassed that amount of time, you're no longer allowed to speak. That blew me away. The logic behind that. You know how long I've been talking to Claire. Okay, but every conversation, it's not a tally of hours you've spoken to Claire. I mean, it starts new, right? You should be at 0, but apparently not with him. Apparently you had your time, and now you just sit there and take it like a good girl. Otherwise, he's going to rage at you. Really, really, and just some really different logic going on there.
Yeah,
Obamacare laws for 30
I
years
think
old.
it's kind
Wow.
of done in. Sorry, what did you say?
Somebody in the chat said Obamacare allows for 30-year-old children on parents' insurance policies out here, so that could be part of the problem. If our national health insurance policies are recognizing 30-year-old dependents, then we have an issue.
Wow, that is crazy. I
Yeah,
thought
yeah.
18. I mean, 18 is the age, isn't it? I'd say, no, your kid is grown up. It's got to work.
I moved out when I was 17. I graduated high school when I was 17, and because I skipped a grade. But when, you know, I lived with my dad, and he told me, when you turn 18, if you're not in college, and I was like, don't worry about that, Dad. Anyways, and right after high school, I moved across the country and I went to UGA. But I mean, no, I'm not supporting Claire's toddler murder. Nobody's saying toddlers should be murdered. Nobody's saying infants should be murdered because of a slight disability. But I do understand and recognize the fact that there is a need to have humane, realistic options available for parents who have children who aren't going to make it to the age of 1, because typically those children are suffering. When you have a severely deformed and disabled baby, they aren't living a good quality of life. They're kept alive with artificial means. It's not right. It's cruel, in my opinion. The parents need to keep a child alive. I get that. But in reality, sometimes these parents, they might not have the means. It might be just a bleak situation. They should have the ability to um, put that child out of misery. And it's already a law in the UK. It's a moot point to even argue, because it's already
Yeah.
in the
Uh,
UK. Yeah.
Yeah. And the people who want to force parents to bring up their severely disabled children, I mean, guess what? There'll be bachelors or, people who aren't parents, wanting to
Well,
force.
the problem with that is I don't think we should, again, this is one thing I don't agree with you on. I don't, but if you look at this from a logical perspective, those parents are going to die someday. Where does this child go? Who's responsible? Well, the siblings or the state, right? And it's but most of these people, if they are severely disabled, their lifespan's very short anyway, so they don't make it to that. But I think when it comes to, there's a reason why there's a law in the UK that allows parents to, um, I don't want to say euthanize. It sounds so vicious. To end the life of a child that's not going to make it to 6 months old anyways. I mean, there's just no point. They're suffering. There's a documentary on here. Look it up, you guys. Misha, my son was 4 years old before he could talk. We talked in sign language. We spoke in using different forms of ABA therapy, textbooks, and different means of communication. He wasn't diagnosed with autism until he was 2.5. Nobody's saying to kill autistic babies. Nobody's saying to exterminate autistic 4-year-olds. That's not what anybody's saying. What she is stating, which I don't fully agree with, but I can say for a fact that there's a law in the UK that allows parents to gently euthanize, or however you want to put it, babies who are severely disabled who are suffering. I think they should be able to, because why do you want a suffering newborn who can't eat, who's going to have a heart attack, who has some mitochondrial disorder that's limiting their ability to take in the nutrients their body needs? So their heart overworks, it becomes enlarged, they have a heart attack and die. Do you want a newborn to go through that? Because I know somebody who did, and it was hell. The baby suffered, the parents suffered. Overall, it was a horrible, horrible experience. No good came of it, keeping this baby alive. Died when it was 6 months old. There's a reason for these things. Should we be allowed to terminate deranged adults too? Well, that would be nice, but that's not realistic. Nobody's playing God. Okay, so if we can't play God, then we shouldn't be able to keep people alive by artificial means then either, because that's playing God as well. If people need artificial intervention through machines and whatnot, medical intervention to keep them alive, then that's playing God as well. It's no different. People on ventilators, people on life supportive systems are, those doctors are playing God because they would have been dead without that intervention, right? Same thing. You know what I mean, Claire?
Mhm. What you're I thought you were talking to the chat, so I kind of
I
switched
would.
off.
No, people are saying, well, we shouldn't be playing God. But, my point was when people are kept alive by artificial means of medical intervention, so life supportive measures, if somebody's on a life supportive measure through medical intervention, that's playing God, because without those things, they'd be dead.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
no
the
different.
doctors are known for playing God, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, we just hope that the people who are in charge, have decent morals. And if they don't, then we're all in trouble,
Yeah.
including the people at the top. Because, I think what's disturbing is when they start fighting each other. When they don't realize that, that there's so many more of us and there is of them. And that's why they should, be really clear about class solidarity, you know. Because all these different groups are supposed to have some group identity and group solidarity because they know that the other groups don't like them, and
Yeah.
this naturally occurring. The old and the young don't necessarily always get on. Men and women don't. Poor and the rich don't. But if they got
Yeah.
on, then everything would work fine. And therefore, the laws have to be fair to make
Right.
people get on. And if they're not fair, they're going to hate each other. And
Right.
that's all I want to discuss. But
Yeah.
these
We're
people
void
just
of
want to.
consequence, aren't we? Yeah, yeah. Well, absolutely. And the consequences are lacking these days, and I think that's the main problem. If we had a more moral code that we had to live by, this is where I agree with you. We have to have a moral govern of people. There has to be accountability for your character and moralistic type behavior, your choices you make. I mean, look, I'm somebody who's made a lot of bad choices in life, and had I had rougher consequences to some of these earlier on, I probably wouldn't have done that, right? And I'm self-reflective enough to recognize that, you know, had there been a stricter realm of existence that I had that was either religious based or whatever, the outcome would have been a lot different, but I didn't have those types of consequences. So I made a lot of bad choices late into life. I mean, I still make them. So that, I'm a prime example of somebody who could have thrived under this type of scenario, and who's transparent enough to recognize that. Nobody's dying on a hill. Nobody's saying to kill babies. Nobody's saying to kill your toddlers. It's just for me, it's a matter of, quality of life, right? It's the quality of life, and people are just so ready to persecute and nail everybody to the cross because of a comment. It's unbelievable to me, Claire. You definitely have an upward battle with some of these talking points, that's for sure. I don't handle them as well as you. I get frustrated when people lack the discernment and logic. I'm like ready to start throwing spears and stuff. Like, what the hell's wrong with all that? That was probably a wrong way to put it.
That's what I'm here for spears.
Right. Right. Anyways, Claire, I have to wrap this up. I need to get going on my things while the kiddos are in school. But it was nice talking with you, like always.
Thank you for coming and hinting that you might be, talking about secular Quranism, maybe at other places, just to wind people up, because maybe that's the only thing that would even work. You know,
Yeah. Sometimes we have to.
Jen Sharp said, "Oh, it's a rhetorical device. She doesn't really believe in it. She's only saying this horrible thing to make us aware of how far we have to go to correct ourselves." It's like, yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't see Jen in the chat, but
No, she
oh,
said that
theoretic.
before. She never
I
comes here.
see.
She doesn't talk to me anymore.
Oh, I
Um,
see. I see. I was supposed to go on their chat, but that didn't quite work out. Bye, Cookies. It was nice seeing you. Idiotic fear mongering. Okay. You take care, Misha. You have a good day.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Claire.
Enjoy the
Bye-bye.
rest of the day. Bye. Stephen James remembers the kind of woman that, where is it? That Daniel likes. And Winona Ryder thinks, Daniel Sienkiewicz is cute. But before I go, I want to say one last thing about Jews, which is that removing them from your country will not make things better if your laws are unchanged. Because even in the concept of scapegoating, it's like they've kind of beaten the Gentile to it, because there is already a chapter on scapegoating and how to do it in the Bible. And I think it's an urge that people have. It's like, well, kicking the cat or kicking the dog after a bad day at work, or being mean to our spouse, taking it out on the children, or anybody who is lower status than you, or if they're high status, you're going to blame everything on them. But if you try thinking through the bad choices that you made, or was made on your behalf by people, if you can try and work it out without blaming anyone and taking most of the blame yourself, you would forgive yourself a lot sooner, a lot more easily. And unfortunately, Daniel, being a little slow on the uptake and finding it hard to communicate his ideas properly, it's actually psychologically predictable that he would want to blame, the people he won't like. Because a lot of the things that we do are, what's the word? I'll just say this again, that we are our own worst enemy, and we deny this. We deny this fact that we are our own worst enemy. So, because we love ourselves, I guess we never blame ourselves. It's always somebody else's fault. And we never take responsibility, which means that we are doomed to commit the same mistakes over and over again. And that would be sad, because we only have a limited lifespan, and we should actually try the best ways out of jail, sooner rather than later, and not try all the wrong ways first. So that's all I'm going to say on the matter. Thank you all for coming by, and thank you, Tiffany, for talking to me. Not many women want to talk to me. So I'm particularly grateful to Tiffany for her honesty and her courage.